I've used the London system as my weapon of choice from basically the time when I first learned how to play chess all the way up to 2000 on chess.com, and I continue to use it in my competitive play today. But the London often gets this reputation of being kind of boring and dry, but in this video I'm going to show you exactly how you can turn that completely on its head, specifically in this line against kind of the Grunfeld setup where black is going for this fianchetto, along with pushing their d pawn to d5. I've made a video in the past about how you can play in a similar fashion when black is playing kind of the King's Indian or the Pierce defense, but the difference is in that video the pawn is on d6, but in this case we're going to get some very sharp and aggressive lines. A lot of times we're going to get to sacrifice the exchange as early as move 7, and I'm so excited to show you all of these lines. Let's jump right in with a game that I played on chess.com. It's a blitz game, and chess.com gave me a 100% accuracy score on this one, so let's take a look. So in this game, it starts off looking like a pretty normal setup: d4, bishop f4, black's knight comes out to f6. We play the start of this kind of typical pawn pyramid idea with the move e3. But as soon as we see this g-pawn move forward with the plan of fianchettoing the bishop this way instead of where it normally comes out in the London, which is out to here, this is where we're going to switch up our moves a little bit. Instead of bringing our knight out to d2, we're actually going to put it on c3, which is what happened in this game. Black continues, bringing the bishop to g7 for the fianchetto, and our general plan in these kinds of systems is we want to castle queenside. So we're going to bring our queen up to d2, castle, and then launch a very quick attack against black's king side. And in fact, in this specific line, we can start that attack right away with the move h4. And you can see it's a book move. It's been played quite a bit. I actually originally found these ideas in a speedrun video, I believe, from Daniel Naroditsky, so I would definitely check that out. I actually think he has a course on that at this point. So that would be a great resource if you want to go a little bit more in depth into these lines and maybe play the Jobava more consistently against anything that black can throw at you. But I like to play it particularly against these fianchetto systems. And now if black simply castles, which is exactly what happens in this game, now our attack really commences. We're going to push forward with h5. And you may be thinking, well, what's stopping black from simply capturing with the knight? As you can see, this is a mistake, but it's only a mistake if you know the correct follow-up, which is bang, we need to sacrifice our rook. Brilliant move, according to chess.com. And we get our queen in to the h-file. We're going to launch a very strong attack against black's castled king. All of a sudden, it's looking a little bare over there once that g-pawn is gone. So in the game, unfortunately, I think this is a mouse slip from my opponent. They played e5. I think they might have meant to play e6 instead, but this just gives us a free pawn. So I captured with my pawn. You don't really want to capture with the bishop because you don't really want to be trading off pieces right now. You want to keep your attacking pieces on the board, especially after you've sacrificed an exchange like this. You want as many pieces as possible to come to the party and finish off the king as quickly as you can. Black continued solidifying their center. I went bishop d3, just aiming over here at this very weak pawn. And now f4, this is a pretty common move as we'll see in some of the other variations, but because of the earlier pawn sacrifice from my opponent, I was able to capture en passant, and after the queen captures back, suddenly it's a forced mate in 4. So capture with the bishop on h7. There's only one move that the black king has, which is going onto the h-file. After the bishop drops back, again, just covering this square. This is really important. We don't want the black king to escape out that direction. The bishop gets to block, but it doesn't matter because we capture with the queen, and we have a checkmate. And this is a checkmate in only 15 moves. I mean, this is pretty good stuff. But of course, that's not going to happen in all of your games. Let's take a look, starting at the beginning of the most common lines that you'll face, the most common traps you'll be able to set for your opponent, and the way to play if they don't fall for any of those traps, because luckily, this kind of a line is very good, whether or not your opponent is, falling for your tricks. So again, starting from the beginning, d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6. Move order doesn't super matter here. But as soon as we see this fianchetto thing happening, we want to play knight c3, just getting ready to castle as soon as possible. And let's go back into this line with the move h4. Now, just to reiterate, if black castles here, we're going to push forward with h5. Captures, 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 captures. E5 obviously isn't the main move. This is what my opponent played in the game. I highly doubt your opponent is going to mouse slip that regularly. More commonly, they're going to try and defend this pawn because this pawn is under attack. Remember, we're already creating attacks by just bringing our queen a little bit closer into enemy territory. So they're going to want to defend. A move I see quite commonly is just c6. And now remember, our plan is very simple. We just want to attack, attack, attack. So bishop d3, already looking at this juicy h7 pawn. And a very common move is f5. Another idea of this is that it's opening up this diagonal because the queen wants to come over and try and trade off. We do not want to trade off. We want to keep our attacking pieces on the board as long as possible. Again, because we've already traded off an exchange. We don't want this game to last until the end game because then we're just going to be in an end game down the exchange, which is not very fun to play. We want to attack and win even faster than that. So don't want to trade pieces. Continue our development. Knight f3. If the queen comes over, we're going to drop back to h2. This is a very important square. We'll see in some other lines as well. It's aiming down at this knight, so often the knight moves. And now we very simply castle. If the knight goes here, we just bring our rook over to h1. And I hope you can see that we've got a very strong attack going. The general plan after this point is we want to play the move g4, remove this pawn from blocking this diagonal, and checkmate our opponent. So a lot of times you'll need to kind of prepare that move by going knight e5 so that when you eventually push g4, they can't just capture with the knight, because if they do, you will capture with the knight. And once this pawn takes, then we've got 3 attackers on the h7 pawn and we're going to win the game. So those are kind of the general ideas. After you sacrifice the exchange, at this point, the engine is giving this a +2 evaluation, even though we are down a rook or down an exchange. Let's go back a little bit further. Let's go to this position right after we've started our h-pawn push. Another common move if they're not going to castle is the very kind of passive looking a6. This does have a reason because a lot of times the general plan in this like more Jobava type of setup is kind of the reversed fried liver idea, where you want to come up here and, you know, if black's not careful, you're going to fork their rook and their king, defended by the bishop, going after that weak c-pawn. So this is actually surprisingly common just to prevent that kind of idea, but it does allow us to, again, push forward with h5. And now the same thing. If the knight captures, boom, capture with the rook, capture with the queen. And very often black's not going to want to castle into this because they can already see the problems that that's going to cause. But if they stay in the center, they're going to have problems as well. So here, if black plays e6 to defend that d pawn, because remember, again, we're attacking this pawn. Now remember this queen h2 move. All of a sudden, there are a few things on this diagonal that we are going to be able to snatch up. First of all, this pawn cannot be defended again. There's just no way for black to get another piece to defend that. And if the pawn moves forward, well, then the knight is hanging because it's only defended once by the rook. So we're going to win at least a pawn here. And backing up to this position, if black instead chooses to defend their center pawn with the c pawn, now we're going to, again, bring out our pieces, start developing, gear up for the attack with the move knight f3. If black plays knight d7, very common developing move, and also, you know, on the next move wanting to kick out the queen, this is actually a huge mistake because we have this beautiful idea with knight g5. Now, we're threatening checkmate, and if black castles and tries to get the rook onto this file to defend against the checkmate, well, then we have checkmate over here too, so it doesn't matter. So really, the only way to defend that f-pawn is to play rook f8, which is not a very pretty move. I mean, you don't really want your king surrounded by its pieces like this. You would much rather be castled and out of the center, and we can immediately take advantage of this terrible king placement with the very pretty knight e6. Now this pawn is pinned by the queen, so it cannot capture, and we are forking so many pieces right now. If the queen moves, which I think is kind of the obvious choice, the queen's under attack, it only has options along this diagonal, and no matter where it goes, whether to a5 or to b6, we're not going to play here and fork the king and the rook. Instead, we're just going to win the queen. We're going to play bishop to c7 instead. And the idea is that if this queen does maybe, again, kind of the obvious immediate move, which is to capture the b pawn and fork our pieces instead, well, now we've got checkmate because the bishop is covering this square, capture black's bishop, and the king just has no moves. So if black doesn't want to get checkmated, their only other option is to just capture the bishop, and black doesn't even really get compensation for that because we're going to win the rook anyway. So this is just an amazing line. Hopefully if you get this, you'll be able to brag about it and go on to win the game. So one more trap I wanted to show, going all the way back to this position. Again, if black plays this more defensive a6, we push forward with h5. And sometimes I will see this in faster games. Black thinks, okay, I don't want to allow them to sacrifice the exchange because that looks scary. So instead, let me get 2 minor pieces on it, bring out the bishop, capture with the bishop, and all is going to be fine. This doesn't work because we simply have f3, and if black uses the bishop to capture, we're going to just trap it on the side of the board. That's another one to keep in mind. So we've seen all the dangerous things that can happen if black allows us to play h5 and, sacrifice the exchange. It's a very fun and aggressive line. But what happens if black just stops all that shenanigans in the first place and plays h5 themselves? Well, you're still going to get a fun game, but it won't be quite as exciting from the start. Now we just want to castle queenside as soon as possible and then start with the pawn storm on this side of the board. Of course, also developing our pieces in the meantime. So we're going to start with the move knight f3. Very often black will feel, fairly safe enough to castle here, and frankly they are. We can immediately jump into the center with knight e5. We actually have the time to move our knight twice just to take some better control of these center squares. Common move to continue striking at the center. Black will play c5. And remember, our general idea is we want to castle and start attacking. So a good way to do that is to play queen d2. If black ever captures in the center, well, now we've got this beautiful battery that we can use to trade off black's dark squared bishop and hopefully get our queen involved on the king side. And I actually won't go too much further into any of the specific lines because honestly, they do get a little bit theoretical. I would recommend, if you're looking to go a little bit deeper into these lines, to play them out as black against the computer. Play what you think are natural moves from positions like this and just see how the higher level engine is going to completely destroy you. That's a great way to build out a repertoire when you don't have like a specific coach telling you exactly what to do. That's the way you can do it yourself. I can tell you from experience, generally the plans are going to be expanding on the queen side, on the king side like this after we've castled queen side. Often if this knight comes out here, we can bring our bishop out to pin it. If this bishop ever comes out here, you do need to keep an eye on the c2 square. Castling as soon as possible can often, just take care of that, but it is just something to keep in mind. And that's a lot of arrows on the screen to say basically what I'm trying to get across to you, which is that you just want to attack, attack, attack. When you're opposite side castling, that is the name of the game. And you do need to be comfortable sacrificing pawns. This is coming from somebody who plays the London and for a long time played the French defense, which are like pretty much considered the safest, most boring openings that you can play. And this is me telling you that sometimes you need to sacrifice a pawn to get the attack going. This often will come in the form of like f3 and g4, and then if the h-pawn takes on g4, you can just play h5, just really trying to open up files as soon as possible. These games get really messy, but they do get very fun, and it's honestly a pretty different way to play the London if you're looking to kind of switch it up a little bit. These lines are very fun, very aggressive, and they really do teach you how to use your pieces to attack as quickly as possible. So I hope this gave you a place to start on these fun and aggressive attacking London lines. The best way to learn, honestly, is to play, so I would definitely recommend playing this in Blitz or Rapid just to kind of get a feel for the positions that you're getting, see if these kind of positions are for you, and then, continue to build out your repertoire. The more experience that you have, the more ideas that you will see your opponent try, and you'll be able to learn exactly how to counter them. Thanks so much for watching. If you're new around here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out a lot, and I will see you soon.